Welcome back. The ANC has again promised to introduce a permanent basic income grant. However, the party has not committed to any timeline. The proposal was again put forward by President Ramaphosa at the party's manifesto launch, which took place earlier in February. Now, to help us unpack this, we're joined by Redge Nkosi, who's the Executive Director at Firstsource Money. Mr. Nkosi, thank you so much for your time this evening. Now, a lot was said, of course, last week when the President said that at the ANC manifesto that they don't want people to be financially, they want people to be financially independent, rather, and that's why they've decided to convert the 350 SRD grant into a permanent basic grant for those who are unemployed. Now, do you see this as mere electioneering or a step in the right direction?
Again, thanks. Well, I'll take that statement with the piece of salt. Remember, the issue of converting SRD grants into some basic income is not necessarily new. We started this sometime after 2020, where some proposals were made that this should actually be turned into some basic income grant. But the Treasury itself had poured cold water over the idea, saying what's not possible. Indeed, according to their own model, this will be unsustainable. Now, today, for the President to stand up and say, well, they've decided, I repeat, the President decided. It's not really true, because the Minister of Finance is saying we are working on that. This, quite frankly, tells us, I think the President is really electioneering instead of telling the people the truth about what is really said.
And as you're mentioning as well, you know, it has been around since 2020, this specific grant, though. Do you question the timing of this announcement, whether it's going to happen or not, that it did happen at an election manifesto of the governing party?
So, absolutely. Absolutely. Remember that the 350 has been there and they haven't been any. Why? Is because it's very costly after the students. Now, the very costly 350 is going to be turned into a basic income grant with a larger number of people coming in. How possible? That just doesn't make sense at all. So I'd really take the story from the President with a great deal of pinch of salt, and that this is about the elections that are coming, instead of the reality that we expect from the ANC government, and indeed whoever else is promising us that social grant, especially if they're working from the models that are with the Treasury and the Reserve Bank. Those models, they throw out this 350 and or any possibility of a basic income grant being put permanent in the country.
And while, you know, we may argue how unsustainable this is, of course, many people rely on this grant, and as the unemployment stats worsen, more and more people will need it. But the reality is that we all know that it's not enough to get anyone through a full month. But a lot of people will say, well, at least it is something. It's better than nothing.
No doubt. Frankly, any rand in your pocket is something, isn't it? You can buy a pack of matches to light up whatever. 350 may be something that people can buy, maybe a bag of meal or something like that. But it's not sufficient to deal with the poverty that we're experiencing in the country. I think the ANC is well aware of that. All citizens are well aware of that, because it's very expensive. Nonetheless, it is helping, isn't it? But with regard to the fact that this should, in fact, be put on as a permanent basic income grant, remember, the President is saying this is about 9 million people that are receiving that, where actually we have about 7 million people, not necessarily 9. Now, if it is to be put as a BIG, basic income grant, the number will explode to over 15 or even 20 million people. That would be very unsustainable, at least according to how the Treasury works out. So for me, while the amount is useful in some way to our people, is a very, very little amount that for people to sustain themselves properly.
The argument's also been raised that, you know, as we're talking about this, that 350 is not enough. But as you're mentioning as well, this being implemented, then that number balloons and more people will obviously need to access that basic income grant when a lot more people are unemployed. Some opposition political parties have also made similar promises around increasing these grants. For instance, Member of Parliament Brett Heron from the Good Party, he wrote a piece that this income grant should be at least 999 rand. Now, Mr. Nkosi, where's this money going to come from?
Well, these are wishful thinking by any one of these people, thinking that they can pay a thousand rand grant. I'm saying this because we do very well understand how the computable general equilibrium model that Treasury works on, says about this. If they cannot afford a 350 just to increase on an annual basis with some inflation of about 6, 7 or whatever %, how possible would it be that you get someone saying it's 900 rand would be fine when Treasury right now is having a problem? Listen also to this issue. The Minister of Social Services, she's saying, well, they're going to borrow money, they're going to increase taxes, they're going to do reallocations of the existing money. That is not possible because the budget is already tight. Already we are experiencing austerity in this country. Where would this money come from? He said, these are dreams for people who just want to be seen, to be talking, or they just want to grab votes from the stranded South Africans.
South African government finds itself in a very difficult position, a bit of a catch-22 when it comes to this, because people are unemployed and do obviously need some sort of basic income grant. But also, on the other hand, there isn't that much money to go around to make sure that everybody who deserves this basic income grant does get it. What's the solution here?
Careful economists in this country have proposed that the South African government and indeed the ANC should stop looking to IMF, World Bank solutions or ideas about how to run this economy. What the Treasury is using, what the Reserve Bank is using are ideas from the World Bank, International Monetary Fund, and the OECD, that's the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development in Europe. They have no ideas of their own. Careful economists in this country have said, let's dump this macroeconomic framework, which is not working and will never work in the first place, and introduce a new approach to managing our economy. Until that is done, all these stories from the President, from the Treasury, are stories as they should be stories because they cannot afford. Therefore, the only solution, as you ask, is for us to dump these frameworks, the economic policy regime that we copied from World Bank, IMF, and the OECD, and put in new policies. That is indeed very possible. This country can, in fact, survive with even a 1,500 grant given to every single citizen, but not with this current policy regime that we have from Treasury, the ANC, and indeed the government as well, as a whole.
I think that mention of the 1,500 grant possibility is music to many people's ears who may be listening to that conversation right now. But thank you so much for your time and your insights this evening. That was Redge Nkosi, who's the Executive Director at Firstsource Money.